Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Owning Your Health, Wellness Resources for Young Adults ages 18 to 24. This webinar is a re-recording of the webinar that was live on January 31st. Unfortunately, we experienced some technical difficulties with the WebEx recording on that day, so we're re-recording it again today so that everyone who wanted to attend has a recording link. If you are receiving MLA credit for listening to this webinar, the evaluation link should pop up at the end of the webinar. If it doesn't, I have put the recording link and the enrollment code in the chat box, so you should see it here. And you should be able to apply for the CE credit. All right, I think we're ready to begin. I wanted to let you know that this webinar is new. The audience that this information is written for really is two different audiences. It is for young adults, ages 18 to 24, but it's also for high school teachers as well as post-secondary education teachers or student support specialists, guidance counselors, librarians, or anyone else who is involved with health education programming for older teens and young adults. So I'm Susan Halpin. I'm an Education and Outreach Coordinator for the National Networks of Libraries of Medicine. And my office is located in Worcester, Mass. I briefly want to share about how this course came about. I'm a former high school teacher who taught health and wellness elective classes. And when I was teaching, I created an elective class called Senior Survival that was offered during the fall semester to high school seniors. And the goal of the class was to prepare the seniors for their life after high school, regardless of whether they were attending college or going on to another form of higher education, or if they were planning to work when they graduated. I was hoping that I could provide information that would be appropriate for all of those events that happen after high school. So some of the topics we covered in Senior Survival were how post-secondary education is different from high school, how to manage one's time with a less structured schedule, how to achieve life balance with less structure, what is wellness and how to maintain it. We also discussed how to approach deciding on a career using interest and skill tests, how to determine the types of careers or jobs that best match those strengths. We also talked about how using online free resources to find out more information about jobs that were high in demand or salaries for jobs, or the amount of training or education needed, and as well as the cost for that training. Preparing for an interview, co-op, or internship was also another unit. How to conduct an informational interview about a career that one might be interested in was also, it was not only discussed, but we actually the students actually did these informational interviews about careers they were interested in. And lastly, we talked about basic nutrition and how to use the myplate.gov model, as well as doing some basic food preparation using cooking equipment that would be in an apartment or dorm room. So, you know, not a lot of equipment was needed to prepare the foods that the students actually cooked. We made them, the recipes, so that you could make them in a microwave with just a few different pieces of cooking equipment. And lastly, we talked about how to take care of one's health, being aware of family history, when to make a medical appointment, and how to prepare for a medical appointment. So senior survival was loosely structured around the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And to me, using Covey's 7 habits as a way to structure life is a very good way to be balanced and healthy. So here is the book, and also the 7 habits that are covered in this book. So the 7 habits are to be proactive, which means taking responsibility for either your education or your life. Number 2, begin with the end in mind, which is creating a plan for what you want to accomplish. Number 3 is putting first things first, which means doing the most important chores or commitments first. Number 4, think win-win. Work to find solutions to challenges in a way where all parties gain something. Number 5, seek first to understand, then be understood, which means I listen or hear people before I express my opinion. Number 6 is synergize. Value the strengths of others and combine them with my own strengths to solve challenges. And number 7 is sharpen the saw, which means to, on a regular basis, recharge my body, mind, heart, and spirit so that I can stay sharp and improve myself. And just a quick summary of these habits as they apply to this course. Habits 1, 2, and 3 are focused on self-mastery and moving from dependence to independence. Habits 4, 5, and 6 are focused on developing teamwork, collaboration, and communication skills, moving from independence to interdependence. And Habit 7 is focused on continuous growth and improvement. And I think that using these habits gives students some tools and best practices for beginning to live their lives independently. Stephen Covey's son, Sean, took his father's 7 habits and applied those habits to college and higher education. He published a workbook with all kinds of tools and additional resources that has a similar title, and it's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective College Students. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, the agency within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that leads public health efforts to advance the behavioral health of the nation, also has a really good resource that I've used along with the 7 habits for this webinar. So both of those resources are interwoven throughout the webinar, and you'll see what I mean as we move further along. Although SAMHSA has the word substance abuse and mental health as part of their name, I want you to know that their resources are very appropriate for all of us, regardless of whether substance use disorder or mental health challenges, you know, are something that we're diagnosed or we're facing. Besides the SAMHSA and 7 Habits, I'm also highlighting many of the health and medical resources from the National Library of Medicine. And along with those resources, I will also share some of the resources that I used through the senior survival class. There is also a master resource list that will be included, and you will be able to access that master list of resources with this recording link. There's many more resources on that list than what I will talk about here, but you may find them very helpful. The steps for owning your health are directly related to our learning objectives for today. So we'll talk about where to locate credible health information and how to evaluate it. As we discuss each dimension of health, you will understand how each dimension is important to overall health and balance, and you'll be introduced to many helpful online health resources to use to prepare for medical appointments and to help communicate effectively with your healthcare provider. So we learn about health in many different ways, informally through TV, movies, or other media, from our friends and peers, or through social media or the internet. We can also learn about health as part of our K-12 education. Gym teachers or coaches used to teach health, and in some schools that still happens. However, there are many public school systems that no longer require gym or health in all 4 years of high school, and I don't think that health or health at all is part of any post-secondary education program that I know of. In the U.S., our education system has created standards and performance indicators of what students should know about health and be able to do by certain grades, such as 2, 5, 8, or 12. And although there are performance indicators and benchmarks students must meet as part of this health education, many post-secondary students find that they're unsure about how to advocate for their own health. They don't have a good understanding of when to seek medical care or what constitutes going to the emergency room, how to interact with health insurance carriers, how to find care if they're dealing with an emergency, also how and where to fill prescriptions, or even how to help a friend who's not safe. And I think it's because we don't allow our students to do any of these things, you know, in the time before they either leave home or become independent. So living away from home, or the time after high school, may be the first time students schedule medical appointments, fill prescriptions, or make decisions about their own health care. And they aren't prepared to meet these basic life challenges. So I'm hoping, you know, through this course and the resources offered, that that this age group will have some tools that they can use so that they can learn how to stay healthy and figure out how to get the right care when they need it. So the first step in owning your own health is to know where you can find health information. Here are a couple of facts about the online habits of teens or young adults that are searching for health information online. When asked to indicate the reasons they have searched for information online, 75% said they wanted to get information about a health issue that they themselves are dealing with. Actually, I should have started with the first line. 87% of those asked about this topic say they have searched for health information online. About half say they searched for information about a health issue affecting someone they know. 94% of those say what they have found has been somewhat helpful, and just 29% report the information they found most recently as very helpful. This table shows the health topics this age group has looked for information about. So fitness, 63% were interested in finding out more information. Diet and nutrition, stress, anxiety, and depression. Social media, Social media is another way young people can get health information. The attached quotes are examples from young adults either sharing or requesting health information on social media. So I won't read each of these quotes in the interest of time, but they're for all different topics, and yeah, you can see what some of these young adults were looking for. So with so many people, and not just young people, discussing looking for, sharing, and receiving their health information online, it's really important to make sure that the health information is accurate and is coming from a credible source. So the National Library of Medicine, or NLM, is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and NLM offers a wide variety of health information for a variety of audiences. There's health and medical information for the general consumer, websites and databases for healthcare professionals and public health folks, as well as information for researchers, pharmacists, first responders, educators, and students. The NLM is a physical library that sits on the campus of the NIH in Bethesda, Maryland, and this library is the biggest biomedical library in the world and one of the federal government's largest providers of digital content, because the library has made all of its health and wellness information available online, and anyone can access that information, and it's free. The NLM's mission is to advance the progress of medicine and improve public health by making biomedical information accessible to everyone. So many of you may be familiar with NLM's two well-known products, PubMed and Medline Plus. So on the left is the homepage for PubMed, which is NLM's abstracting database that has more than 29 million citations for biomedical literature from Medline, life science journals, or online books. Many of you have probably used PubMed for research if you've been involved in writing health or science-related research pages. On the right is a screenshot of the Medline Plus homepage, which is NLM's consumer health website. Medline Plus provides information on over 1,000 diseases and conditions and offers information about wellness in plain language. It has extensive information from NIH's, from the NIH and other trusted sources. There are directories, a medical encyclopedia, health information in Spanish and other languages, extensive information on prescription and non-prescription drugs, and links to thousands of clinical trials. And Medline Plus is updated daily. There's no advertising on Medline Plus or any of the other NLM online resources. Medline Plus doesn't endorse any companies or products. So with so many young adults getting their health information from the internet, it is really important to know how to evaluate health information for credibility. So Medline Plus provides several tutorials that could be used as a lesson or a programming tool for young adults if you're a teacher. One of the first pieces of information to look at is the source of the site. It's recommended that you look for an About Us page. There you can check to see who runs the site. Is it a branch of government? Frequently, a government website has the .gov file extension to its URL, a university which has the EDU extension, a health organization, ORG, or is it a hospital or business? The next thing you want to look at is quality. Does the site have an editorial board? Is the information reviewed before it's posted? And a good rule of thumb to remember is that when things sound too good to be true, they often are, and those often are not trustworthy websites. You want current, unbiased information based on research. So in this slide, it summarizes some of the points that I made previously. You want to be a critical consumer of online information, and we also want to teach our students how to also be critical online health information consumers. If you were using the tutorial that Medline Plus offers, which was the link in the previous slide, you could actually turn that into a classroom lesson and provide the students with several different health websites and have the students use some of this information to evaluate whether the sites they're looking at are credible. Another tool you could use is the Trust It or Trash It tool. And Trust It or Trash It is a partner organization of the NLM, and they've developed this tool basically to just have some questions that you can ask yourself about what you're reading online. So you want to ask yourself who wrote it, whether the author's name is easy to find, whether the authors have experience and are respected in their community or colleagues. You want to know whether they have credentials for what they're writing about. You also want to know when did they write this information. Is it current? You also want to know how did they know this information? Is the information they're writing about based on the research of many people, or are they just talking about an individual experience? And if you click on the link here, you will actually have access to this PDF, and I find it handy to print this out and have it available for students so that they can have it next to them when they're evaluating a website. So as I said, NLM resources don't have advertising, and this is a screenshot of Medline Plus, and the arrows point to some of the handy features you will find at Medline Plus. So the site is very easy to search, either by health topic, or you can use the search box. Information is presented in videos, podcasts, and in written format. The information is written by experts, it's updated daily, and it's also peer-reviewed. Medline Plus translates every page of the website into Spanish. However, they also provide 40 other languages to translate the information on their site too. Not all of the pages of the site are translated into all 40 of the languages, but if you spend some time on this site, you'll see that multiple languages are often on one page, which can be very handy. You also can learn about lab tests, so that is the bottom left-hand corner of the site. The information provided about lab tests is what the test is used for, why your doctor may have ordered it, how the test will feel, and what the results may mean. Medline Plus also has a medical encyclopedia and information about clinical trials in your city and state, as well as access to a quarterly magazine, and this is pictured on the right-hand side. You can read this magazine right here online, or you can also order this magazine, and it's free. You can also request multiple copies of this magazine if you are using it for teaching purposes. So just as an example of how much easier it is to start with Medline Plus when you're beginning to search for health information online, I provided this example of when I did a Google search on STDs, and the search returned 67 million results to me, and you know, some of those results that Google returned are probably fine, and you can actually see on the bottom the CDC site came up first, and that's a credible health information site. However, the many other sites that Google returned from this search may not be sources of credible information. So it's important that, or it's easier to actually start with using Medline Plus. And yes, and you can see here, when I put in STD in the search box of Medline Plus, it comes up with a much cleaner result, and I'm able to connect to other links from this site, and all of the links that it connects me to are credible sources of information. So I just think it's easier to start with Medline Plus and then work your way out. So on the left-hand side, you can see there are related topics to STDs. You can also refine the results you want by either health topics, drugs and supplements, the medical encyclopedia, information from the Medline Plus magazine. You can also refine it by format. You can get PDFs for the information you're looking for. You can get videos as well as images. In the center here, my search actually turned up some of the different kinds of STDs. So if you were looking for information about chlamydia, you know, you would have that information right here. All right, so now we're going to move on to the creating a healthier life, a step-by-step guide to wellness from SAMHSA. And just a little more background on SAMHSA. This organization works closely with other health agencies to advance behavioral health priorities. So wellness is a very broad concept, and in this guide, which anyone can download, SAMHSA invites you to think of wellness as being healthy in many dimensions of our lives. So wellness has a personal meaning for each of us and can be defined in many ways. It's more than the absence of disease or stress. Wellness involves having a purpose in life, being actively involved in satisfying work and play, engaging in joyful relationships, having a healthy body, as well as a healthy living environment, and also having a sense of happiness. Wellness incorporates many dimensions of health, and each dimension is interconnected to give us a total well-being. So the goal of thinking of health in terms of many dimensions is to realize that each dimension is important as it contributes to an overall quality of life. So I included a YouTube link here on the bottom to a 3-minute video that could be a very helpful resource from SAMHSA as it explains each wellness dimension in detail. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to show that video here, but I'll just quickly explain each of these dimensions of health, and then we will move on to the resources that I have for each of these dimensions. So the emotional dimension means or encompasses coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. The environmental dimension has to do with good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environment that supports your well-being. The financial dimension has to do with satisfaction with current and future financial situations. The intellectual dimension has to do with recognizing creative abilities and finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. Occupational is about personal satisfaction and enrichment from one's work. The physical dimension is about recognizing the need for physical activity, healthy foods, and sleep. Social dimension is about developing a sense of connection, belonging, and a well-developed support system. And the spiritual dimension is about expanding a sense of purpose and meaning in life. As mentioned earlier, each dimension of wellness can overlap into and affect other dimensions. So this is just a little example of how these dimensions can be interconnected. So, for example, when we worry about money, which is the financial dimension, like our bills and being able to afford what we need, we sometimes experience anxiety, which is part of the emotional dimension. This anxiety can lead to medical problems, which is the physical, and possibly create problems at work, which would be the occupational. When this happens, we may start to question our own sense of meaning and purpose, which is the spiritual dimension. A component of SAMHSA's wellness initiative, of which this guide is part of, is SAMHSA actually offers tips for improving your health in each of these wellness dimensions. The guide provides information about topics and poses questions as well as resources to address challenges you might be having in a particular health dimension. There's also a worksheet that you can use to create your own wellness plan for each of the health dimensions. Pictured here is the emotional dimension. which involves expressing feelings, adjusting to emotional challenges, and coping with life stressors. Emotional health includes knowing our strengths as well as our challenges, living and working on our own, but also letting others help us at times. So on the left-hand side is a worksheet, and it has topics related to emotional health, for example, feelings and emotions, self-care, and stress. In the center column are questions to think about. For example, the first question here for emotional health is, do you allow yourself to be open to acknowledge your feelings without judgment? And in the rightmost column are resources, suggestions, or links to more information you could find helpful. On the right-hand side is, just a way for you to organize some thoughts if you wanted to create a plan for yourself to improve your emotional health. You could write down what you plan to do to improve your emotional health and what will you need to improve the health. So under mental health or mental illness, I'm going to be introducing several resources because it seems that mental health issues have become a very big problem for young adults. So as I said, Medline Plus is a great place to start for learning about topics, and this is the screenshots for when you actually do a search for mental health. The page starts off with some basic information and categories related to mental health, such as what is mental health, what are mental illnesses. If you scroll further down on the page, Medline Plus links to information on some of our partner sites like Mental Health America, the American Academy of Family Physicians, the Department of Health and Human Services, the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. And just as an FYI, any site that Medline Plus links out to has to adhere to the same criteria as all of the other resources provided by the National Library of Medicine. So some of those criteria are no advertising, being written by experts, updated frequently, and the organization has to have a similar mission to improve public health by making their information freely available. Substance use disorder often coexists with mental health challenges. So the NLM Opiate and Addiction Treatment Portal has lots of information about substance use disorder, whether it's from opioids or not. So some of these topics include understanding addiction or the brain science related to addiction, information about overdose, different kinds of drugs, how to treat addiction, the relationship between pregnancy and addiction, and there's also lots of information about treatment and recovery. Young adults often experience anxiety and stress, especially if they're in a time of transition or they're beginning something new, such as college or a new job. The page pictured here is a report called College to Career Supporting Mental Health, and it's a report written to better understand the challenges to emotional well-being faced by young adults during the college to career transition. This report was a joint effort by the organization Transitions ACR and the JED Foundation. The research organization Transitions to Adult Center for Research, or Transitions ACR, is an organization that's located on the same campus as I am here at the University of Massachusetts Medical School in Worcester, Massachusetts. Transitions ACR is part of the Department of Psychiatry. Their mission is to promote the full participation of transition-age youth and young adults, ages 14 to 30, with mental health conditions. The JED Foundation is a nonprofit that exists to protect emotional health and prevent suicide for our nation's teens and young adults. The JED organization partners with high schools and colleges in order to strengthen their mental health, substance abuse, and suicide programs and systems. JED also equips teens and young adults with the skills and knowledge to help themselves and each other. JED encourages community awareness, understanding, and action for young adult mental health. So just a little background information about mental health. According to Transitions ACR, roughly a third of undergraduates have clinically significant symptoms of mental health problems such as depression and anxiety. Students with mental health conditions who attend college experience high dropout rates, one of the highest of any disability group. And positive mental health is strongly correlated to academic success, retention, and ultimately vocational success, as well as adult resiliency and return on investment. When young adults have good mental health, they often are able to finish their post-secondary programs in a timely manner. Some of the resources Transitions ACR has on their website are tip sheets and publications that provide support on education, living skills, and employment. Being able to communicate what you need in various circumstances is very important to the emotional or mental dimension of health. The tip sheet on the right, How to Speak Up and Be Heard, Self-Advocacy, has some helpful dialogue for practicing self-advocacy. Some common issues such as navigating roommate boundaries, splitting the check at a restaurant with friends, or even asking for an accommodation in a class require self-advocacy skills, and having the appropriate dialogue and being able to practice it ahead of time can be very helpful. Some of the resources provided around self-advocacy remind me of habit number 4, Think Win-Win, as they help with creating satisfying relationships. Another JED resource is the College Transition Summer Checklist, and this checklist provides key actions that potential students can take over the summer before they go to college. For example, gathering information about on-campus health services, activities provided outside the classroom for the college or university that they're attending, or tips for getting ready for the first year of being on a college campus. In the social wellness dimension, having an interest in the needs of others or a concern for the well-being of others is paramount to wellness. Healthy relationships with friends, family, and the community are important. NIH News, which stands for the National Institute of Health, News is a monthly newsletter, and this particular issue that's here actually provides a lot of information related to connecting with others. Within that newsletter, there are also links related to other topics about social health from NIH. You can also order print subscriptions of this newsletter or subscribe to it online. You can also get multiple print copies free of charge if you work in an office, clinic, community center, or library within the U.S. And the link here is how to sign up for that newsletter. A healthy body, good physical habits, nutrition, exercise, and appropriate health care make up the physical dimension of wellness. Choosing things that make our body feel good and reducing the things that don't make it feel good physically, balancing activity with inactivity are all resources that are provided within the brochures pictured here. Also, being aware of and listening to your body can be an important and empowering step toward improving your physical health. So the two flyers here are included in your master resource list. Yeah, so you know, I'm just in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over all of the resources, but there are many that I think young adults would find very helpful to physical health. So healthy eating is definitely part of physical health, and here are two resources. The first one is the healthyeating.gov website that offers more than 100 delicious, heart-healthy recipes, including recipes for regional and multicultural cuisines. And the site that's on the left is would be very helpful toward making healthy eating choices because it explains the nutrition facts panel or label that is included with our foods. And this infographic on the right explains the nutrition facts panel, and it also lists some key changes that took effect in January of 2018 on the nutrition label. Some other healthy eating resources are listed here in this site. One of my favorites is actually an app, and it's called Fooducate. And it's a free app. There's also a website. And what this tool does, it evaluates various foods based on how good they are. And Fooducate uses an algorithm to grade foods, and it ranks them, giving them grades from A to D. And the more natural, healthful, and less processed a food is, the higher grade it will receive. Fooducate only uses publicly available information in its evaluation of a product. And what's really neat is you can use this app when you're grocery shopping. If you're on the Fooducate app and you're at a food in the grocery aisle, you actually are going to scan the barcode of the food, and it will pop up with the product information. And if an item doesn't have a barcode, you can actually look up the information on this app. And if a food that you just scanned has a low grade, Fooducate actually gives you a list of alternatives that you can consider if you would like a replacement for the food that earned a bad grade. So I think this is a good reference tool, but it shouldn't serve as a substitute for reading the nutrition facts label. Some of the other key helpful sites for nutrition are the USDA, the FDA, the CDC, and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And all of those organizations, the links to them are included in your master list. Decisions about your health care are important, including decisions about whether or not to use complementary health products or practices. So the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health enables you to take charge of your health by being an informed consumer. So there's lots of information on this website that you can find out and consider by seeing the scientific studies that have been done on the safety and effectiveness of a product or practice that interests you. Having this kind of information gives you the information to discuss this topic with your healthcare provider before you make a decision. So many of the National Library of Medicine databases, websites, and tools are also available in app formats for both Mac and Android. And the link on this slide actually links you to a brochure that contains the full list of mobile apps. So some of these apps are for HIV or AIDS. There's information about public health, toxicology, consumer health. There's also a second brochure here related to physical health that you may find useful. And at this link, you can either print this out or you can use it online. And there are more apps here actually for quitting smoking, a milestone track app. If a young adult had a child, there's information about what milestones the child should be achieving. There's an herb list app which enables you to find out information about different herbs or supplements. All right, moving on to environmental wellness. So this dimension involves being able to feel safe and be safe in your environment. This includes having access to clean air, food, and water. It's about preserving the areas where we live, learn, and work. This area of wellness promotes learning, contemplation, and relaxation in natural places and spaces. So Toxtown is one of NLM's environmental resources, and Toxtown is a website that provides consumer-level information about everyday locations and situations where you may be exposed to toxic chemicals. This site will help you understand the risks of exposure, potential health effects, and how to protect yourself. If you're a teacher, there are lots of resources on this site for making connections between the environment and health you can use in your classroom, including some really helpful videos. This is an example of how you could make Toxtown, a relatable resource to your students. Most of them probably have had their hair colored or bleached or received a manicure or a gel manicure. And this is just a couple of screenshots from some of the information Toxtown provides about those two things. So Toxtown provides 37 different categories of exposure sources, from agriculture to drinking water to nail salons or hair salons. It explores places and situations where you might be exposed to hazardous chemicals or contaminants, and you can learn how to minimize your risk here. So I wanted to say this will make this information relevant for your students. ToxNet is another NLM resource for searching databases on toxicology, hazardous chemicals, environmental health, and toxic releases. On the left pictured is the household products database, and this might be helpful information if you wanted to learn about what is in the products underneath your kitchen sink or in your garage or bathroom or laundry room. Part of creating a healthy environment is knowing what's in the products you use, knowing their potential health effects, and how to handle them safely. All right, moving on to financial health. And financial health reminds me of habit number 2 about beginning with the end in mind. So pictured here are 3 resources that I have found helpful that you may not know about. So spending money on food is a significant expense, whether a young adult is eating out or grocery shopping to prepare food at home. Did you know that 62% of shoppers say it costs too much to eat healthy food? So pictured on the left is a resource from the Share Our Strength organization, which has a mission to end hunger and poverty in the U.S. and abroad. And one of Share Our Strength's programs is Cooking Matters. And this program helps low-income families learn how to shop and cook healthier. And they offer all kinds of free educational tools for public use. So pictured on the left is a page from the Cooking Matters guide called Eating Healthy on a Budget. And the guide explains each section on the Choose My Plate food model and provides information about healthy and economical choices you can make within that food group. Also pictured here is a little explanation of unit prices, which I find that many young adults don't know about, and it's a really good way to shop smartly when you're at the grocery store. Pictured in the center is the home page for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The CFPB is a U.S. government agency that makes sure banks, lenders, and other financial companies treat you fairly. This agency has several guides that would be very helpful to young adults. Some of the guides, are getting an auto loan, navigating the military financial life cycle, and paying for college. On the right is another resource from Transitions ACR. It's a tip sheet that provides helpful ways to be smart about spending, saving, and starting a budget, or even how to count down on spending. There's also a template for tracking your income and spending. Occupational wellness involves participating in activities that provide meaning and purpose for an individual. Ideally, employment reflects personal values, interests, and beliefs. There's a lot of pressure on young adults to find a job that will provide enough money to support themselves, or to decide on a career direction or find the education or training that's needed for that career. However, many of us don't find a job or career that reflects our values, interests, or beliefs and provides the financial resources we need to support ourselves right away. Sometimes finding a job or career is a process or a journey. The resource on the left is from O Magazine. It's from a 2010 January edition. However, I have tested the links provided here, and the link is to an article that is entitled Test Your Career Strengths by Paige Williams, and she provides 5 links to aptitude tests that were adapted for the magazine by the Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation. The Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation is a nonprofit scientific research and education organization with 2 primary commitments. The first is to study human abilities and provide people with knowledge of their aptitudes that will help them in making decisions about school and work. The magazine asked the foundation to adapt 5 career aptitude tests that O Magazine readers could try at home with no props or proctors necessary. So you can access these aptitude tests at the link provided on the slide. Answers are provided as well. This resource is meant as a first step in career exploration, and no one should base a career decision just on these results. In the center is a resource from the HubSpot blog by Carolyn Forsey. And HubSpot blog is a marketing, sales, agency and customer success content blog, has more than 400,000 subscribers, and it provides information that would be helpful if you're considering a career change. It provides career aptitude tests that can offer unique insight regarding jobs that are best suited for your personality and the skills you have. And best of all, the career aptitude tests that are here are objective measures of your interests. Lastly, on the right is the homepage for the website of the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook. And this is a publication of the United States Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics and includes information about the nature of work, working conditions, training and education, earnings, and job outlook for hundreds of different occupations in the United States. This slide is a few other tip sheets from Transitions ACE RTC. So these tip sheets are how to apply for a job and how to get a job and keep it, and you can download these tip sheets and find some useful information about these topics. So I combined the last 2 dimensions of health, which are spiritual and intellectual health, and we'll discuss these together. And I just thought this slide kind of summed up those last 2 dimensions of health. The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. Often we think about spiritual and intellectual health as, you know, perhaps requiring some deep thinking. These dimensions make me think of the 7th Habit by Stephen Covey about sharpening the saw, Both of these dimensions can be a source of renewal or the recharging of your batteries. Spiritual wellness is a broad concept. It's individual and very personal. It's what gives you meaning, purpose, a sense of balance and peace. Spirituality has to do with recognizing our search for meaning and purpose and developing an appreciation for life and the natural forces that exist in the universe. And during young adulthood, it's usually a time when people start to think about those important questions, such as, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I believe in? What is the truth? And it's really important to our health to take some time to ponder those questions. So in this slide, there are a few suggestions about how to cultivate spiritual health. Intellectual health involves many things that keep our brains active and our intellect expanding. So in a broad sense, it can be about looking at different perspectives of an issue and taking them into consideration. Through different activities, you can broaden your perspective and understand different points of view. So there are suggestions here about how to cultivate intellectual health. So now that we've discussed tools to evaluate online health information, and we know about the credible and trusted resources from the NLM to find our answers about health and medical questions. We also now know that health is multidimensional, overlapping from one dimension into another. We can also see that it can be easy to get out of balance. And when your health is out of balance, that may be a time when you need the help of a medical professional. So the last resource that I'm going to introduce is NLM's Engage for Health resource. So if you're a young adult, the next few slides are examples of how you can improve your health by taking an active role and learning how to ask the right questions during a medical visit. So Engage for Health is a series of tools that give you everything you need if you are somebody who does programming for young adults. You can use Engage for Health to conduct a community education program. And this, I guess I should say, with the goal for helping individuals take a more active role in their health care. So when I was introduced to Engage for Health, it was geared towards senior citizens. However, these tools can be easily adapted to young adults or any other age group. And it literally is a program in a box created to improve health literacy. It provides information and tools with the goal of communicating more effectively with healthcare providers. It also provides tools that might help alleviate some of the stress that occurs during a medical visit. So this toolkit includes presentation slides, speaker notes for those slides, a role-playing exercise, a pre- and post-evaluation form, as well as a promotional poster and logo. So have you ever seen this quote before about communication? The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has occurred. So seeing a doctor, nurse, or being in the hospital can be very stressful, and you may be thinking, if you're the person in one of those positions, you may be thinking or worrying about what the provider is saying to you or the impact the care will have on you or your family, how much the care will cost, or how you're going to get to your next medical appointment, whether you're going to feel discomfort or pain, or any number of things. So listening, understanding, and asking questions can be really difficult. but it's also really important to ask those questions. So the Engage for Health program addresses how to communicate with your healthcare provider using some very simple and well-known active listening and questioning techniques. So some of the tips they give for being engaged during a medical visit would be to take a family member or friend with you, to write things down, repeat the information that you've heard back to your provider, and to also ask questions. Okay, and there are 3 types of questions that they suggest, and again, it feels like it would be common sense information, but oftentimes if you don't think about these questions before you go into an appointment, you may not ask them. So the question or the types of questions are what, why, and how. You know, what is this test for? What are my choices? Why do I need this treatment? Why do I need to decrease, you know, how much salt I eat, for example? How often do I need to take the medication? How do you spell the name of that drug? So anyway, these give you some ideas of the types of questions. And the Engage for Health resource actually goes much more in depth than what I'm presenting here right now. All right, we have come to the end of this webinar, and actually this recording has gone a few minutes beyond the hour that I had said it would, but I hope that you have found the information and tools here helpful, either for yourself or for the young adults you work with. All right, and this last slide gives you the steps if you are planning to receive MLA credit for this course. You will need to complete an evaluation first. As I said at the beginning, when you exit from this webinar, it should come up automatically, the evaluation. However, if it doesn't, it might be smart right now to go to the chat box and just copy the link. And the enrollment code is YOUNG19, and that's all lowercase, YOUNG19. And as I said, along with this recording, you should be receiving not only the presentation slides, but also a master resource list that includes many more resources than the ones I've talked about today. If you have any more questions about this webinar, feel free to email me. You know what, did I include my email address? I don't think I did. So anyway, I'm going to put it in the chat box right now. So it's susan.halpin@umassmed.edu. And I would love to have any feedback you may have about this webinar. You know, I know being a teacher, whenever I taught something for the first time, it was always helpful to get feedback. And even though I piloted this to some young adults before I finished writing the course, it still would be helpful to me to hear from you what was helpful and what wasn't helpful, as well as how you're using this resource. So I would love to hear from you either through email or through the evaluation. All right, thank you very much, and I appreciate the time you spent with us. Goodbye now. I'm going to end the recording.